talking about that somewhere where you don't need a proof, you can just say I'm agnostic.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
but
you
so
bring,
what I'm
but
saying
but
is that atheists
but
are
to say you're
redefining
atheist, then you're
atheism to
requiring
mean
a proof.
agnostic. Yeah, that's kind of like missing the point. The point was that atheists are redefining what atheism means to avoid having to carry a burden of justification. They're
So
defining
down.
themselves as agnostics and then still calling
Okay,
themselves atheists.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
even the agnostic position has a burden of justification too. You have to
Exactly. Why
justify
are you an
that.
agnostic?
Yeah, you have to justify that theism and atheism are possible.
No, that's good. You know
Well,
what?
theism and
I
atheism
welcome
are just
this line of thought.
given as
I do
possible.
actually welcome it, because if you say you're agnostic, then I'd say okay, then I don't require a proof from you. But if you say you're atheist, then you have to prove that God doesn't
Well,
exist.
No,
have to.
you
No,
don't.
you don't. You have to prove that God doesn't exist to hold a epistemic position towards the proposition that God doesn't exist. Why do you have to prove? Do you have to prove God exists to believe God exists?
No.
Yeah, aren't we required to prove that God exists in every debate?
I don't require that justification. I say you have to have no internal contradictions. If you have internal contradictions, there's a problem. And the
Well,
premises have
goodbye
to follow.
Christianity.
Yeah, I know, by Christianity.
Well, I did want to
I
say.
think the Trinity's the worst one, to be honest.
Oh, the
Most
argument from
sense.
evil is way stronger in my opinion.
All
But
right.
the logical problem of the Trinity is a pretty strong one. But I did want to say something. There might be some people that disagree. That's fine. They're wrong. Possibility is never proven. Possibility is a null. Possibility is granted. You can
Okay.
falsify that something is possible, but you can't ever show that something is possible. Like if I said it's possible that I could jump to the moon, you can't say, well, how? What makes it possible? My answer then actually would just be because I can conceive of it in non-contradictory ways.
Well,
And that's what it means to be possible, is that it's non-contradictory.
Huxley
it.
agnosticism to me is like appealing to logical positivism. It's like they only accept scientific claims. They have no beliefs. What, you're a global doubter now? Like you're a solipsist? It makes no sense. Like Huxley agnosticism, they come on my friggin' they'll comment on this here and this right now. I bet you they'll be commented like you don't know anything about anything. Like, dude, you
Okay,
can't even
sure.
like justify your position that agnosticism is the right, like the virtuous position to take.
I hate people who act like agnosticism is like somehow more virtuous or something. And this isn't most agnostics that do this anyway, so it's a very,
Yeah.
very small amount of them. But the ones that think that they're high and mighty because, well, I don't take either position because I'm not going to commit myself to things I don't know. And it's like, good. Did you want a fucking cookie, dude? Like, good for you. I don't care.
Yeah, and I get blocked probably by agnostics, those type of agnostics, and Christians and atheists. Like, it's sort of funny.
It kind of popped back into my head, but back when we were talking about, naturalism and stuff, I did want to say one of my favorite points in favor of naturalism is that it is intrinsically simpler in virtue of it doesn't posit a fundamentally dissimilar ontology on top of the one we already know about, natural ontology. It supposes that, hey, that natural ontology that we already know about and everyone accepts because we're all a part of it, that just happens to be the only ontology there is. So when another worldview comes and says, well, no, here's this other ontology that we have to mix in with this one, I'm just like, yeah, well, I don't know about that. Complicating things a little bit. But the argument would be is that actually, because we need this extra ontology to sort of like explain features of this ontology that we live in, it makes it simpler to connect that to it. Otherwise, you would be left with things that you have no explanation for.
What is simple for you was not always simple. For example, if you went back 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, but I can define what I mean by simplicity.
No, I want to go back to your previous example about jumping to the moon, because if you went back 1,000 years ago and you told somebody that they can talk to you from across the planet, that would be probably a further fetched possibility. If you told somebody that there is an entity called Google that can answer everybody's questions at the same time, they will tell you that's a god, or that's impossible. Somebody who doesn't believe is going to tell you that's impossible. So you're just talking from the position where you're at now.
I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry. I actually don't know what your point there was.
When I say naturalism's the most virtuous position, I mean it has the fewest commitments to knowledge, like to my understanding of the world.
That's sort of what I mean when I say it's simpler, is that it posits less ontology. It makes less commitments to, different ontologies and, like you said, different claims that are out there. It doesn't have to do that as much as I would say theism does.
Yeah.
But that's sort of a different discussion. I mean, I'm willing to have it. I'm always down to talk natural.
I want to go through the questions. We should have more. I'm going to do a debate review coming up on the biggest debate so far in modern day debates, which is the Aaron Ra versus Daniel Akikachu debate. So I got it broken apart already. I got
what was the topic of that one?
Which is more best for the world, atheism or Islam, which it seems weird, malformed in the first place, right? Like, what's atheism as a worldview? I had no idea, but whatever.
But see, that's something that I find funny is all these people out here, much love and respect to Aaron, because I respect him a lot, but he's a lacktheist. I mean, he actually is an atheist, because he'll tell you he believes that there is no God. In fact, he'll actually say, I know there are no gods, much the same way I know there is no Santa Claus, or I know there are no leprechauns. So he is actually an atheist, but there's people that will like take a lacktheist position, but then like go into debates defending atheism as if it were some sort of worldview, and they consistently deny that it's a worldview or that it even makes any claims, but then you're turning around and defending it. Like, it's just weird to me.
Hussein just messaged me. You should come on, Hussein. Julie is asking, I guess Samir and Isa could respond. If they would be Muslim had they been born to Christian parents, we all know he'd be arguing for Christianity rather than the Muslim. I think you're sort of loaded there. You're presupposing their answer.
Because I come from a mixed background. My mom's family's Jewish, so I mean that's a funny space, because there are people of mixed backgrounds,
Yeah, I think 25% of American Muslims at one time were non-Muslims, but there's also something like 25% of people that were born Muslim deconvert, and then 25% convert in. So there's like the net gain in the United States is like 0.4% a year, or 0.4%, or
what's hilarious
like that.
In the Muslim community, I would be considered Muslim because Muslims are patrilineal in their lineage, right? Mm-hmm. And Jewish people are matrilineal. So in the Jewish community, I'm considered Jewish. In the Muslim community, I'm considered Muslim. So it's kind of cool.
What?
Yeah, I think Daniel Hakikatu will answer that question.
Does he ever really answer questions, or does he just say really fucking stupid shit?
No, I mean, just the fact that he wasn't Muslim and he converted to Islam, that it does answer your question.
Yeah, it's like a wash in the United States, 50-50.
He was born in a Shia family, and then he became more religious. I think, isn't that what happened? And then he became Sunni. That was my understanding.
I don't know.
But
what about you, Samir? Do you think you'd be the religion of your parents if you were born, say, like in America in the South, and your parents were Christian? Do you think you would have found your way to Islam, or do you think you would have been Christian?
Okay, I believe that I would have searched for the truth, and I would have at least given a chance to the one religion that came after Christianity to find out what it says and see if it deserves my belief. Because Christians, for example, believe in the Old Testament, but Jewish people don't believe in Jesus. So everyone believes that was other religions before him, and then there is a big claim that is like 1.5 billion Muslims in the world that believes in the new religion that came after Christianity. So I would definitely be curious to find out about this religion, and I believe that if I dug into it, that I would be convinced.
It's 1.8 billion now.
Yeah, I was trying to be 2 billion, and sounds like I'm inflating any numbers. So
you're breaking up, which is only 24% of the world population. It is the second largest. But so let's go around the table though. Well, my mom was Christian. My dad was no clue. He said he was always atheist on his deathbed the day before he died. so I guess I'll take his word for it. But we studied world religions as we grew up. We went woo-woo stuff, but I've always been atheist. So, like, I don't know. For me, it didn't matter what the culture I grew up in. I think maybe I took after my dad. I don't know. What about you, Max?
Yeah, I've always been an atheist too. Ever since I'm 5, I remember the nun talking. I went to like a kindergarten attached to a Catholic school. And then I talked with my mom. She basically said the things the nun was saying because she went to that same school. Then I talked with my dad, and he is an atheist, so he explained a little bit of what he believed. And then, yeah, ever since I'm 5, pretty much.
Okay, so similar story to me in some ways. What about you, Dr. J?
He was raised by the Pope.
Then
Sure.
I had a Reformation in my life and became a Baptist. I think anybody that thinks that their background didn't affect them is just totally fooling themselves. So the numbers demonstrate people tend to be more likely in the religion they're born in. So anyone that pretends that that doesn't affect them is just completely incorrect. I mean, if Max's dad said your mom was right, who knows what would have happened, right? Like, it's impossible to say the counterfactual, but it's a big deal. So if I said no, I would be a Christian just the same, even if I were born in Saudi Arabia or whatever. Who knows? How am I supposed to know? Seems like the math would demonstrate that that isn't likely.
What about you, Leo?
What's well, I was raised Catholic. I was Catholic up until about June of 2015, and I was watching a lecture. I think it was from Leonard Susskind in physics, and he made a statement, and it just called. I don't know why. It was a statement about the tenselessness of time, and it just immediately called into question everything I thought I fucking knew. And as I started to delve deeper, I'm just like, I can't maintain, because I couldn't maintain the Kalam anymore in my mind, and that's when I kind of lost my faith. So for me, I would say that they didn't get me my faith, but they helped me keep it, and that would be arguments like the Kalam or like the teleological argument. Because, for a lot of people, that's not really what convinces them to believe. I think for me, it did actually convince me a lot with respect to my belief in God. So in 2015, I would say I was kind of more like an agnostic, trying to, you're going through that. If you've gone through it, you're going through that phase where you're trying to find reasons to still believe and everything. Because I tell people all the time, I didn't want to become an atheist. I didn't become an atheist because I woke up one day and was like, now it's time to stop believing in God. Like, that's not how this works. I did not want to lose my faith. I did not want to stop being a Catholic. But when your mind's changed, when you are convinced of different things, that's what happens. And it was in 2016 that I would say I really became like an atheist, like gods do not exist. And then I would say probably 2019 is when I really became a naturalist.
So I have a question. What made you feel that the Kalam cosmological argument didn't work for you? Like what
Primarily that time is tenseless. Because then that calls into question that is where that difference between something having a beginning and something beginning to exist comes into play, because those aren't the same ontic statement. Saying something has a beginning, and the example I usually give, it's a little flowery, but it makes the point. I'm a little contrived, but it makes the point, and that is that it's accurate to say that the beginning of your house is the front door. But it wouldn't be accurate to say that your house begins to exist at the front door. Your whole house is already there, and it's bounded at one end. And I could just say the same for the universe. I could grant that the universe has an absolute beginning, but that the whole universe is still there and just is. Which is largely what I believe. I don't know if it's truly bounded at one end. I don't think anybody truly knows that. But even if it is, the universe just is.
Okay.
Could it be bounded for us and not bounded for the supernatural?
Well, I don't know what it. If you want me to be completely honest, largely I don't know what it means for something to be supernatural, because every time I get a definition for it, it just sounds like something that doesn't exist. Oh well, it's not in space, and it's not in time, and it's not made of matter, and it doesn't have energy. You can't empirically test for it or seemingly detect it in any meaningful way whatsoever, but it's there. But that just sounds like non-existent things, because non-existent things don't exist in space and don't exist in time, and you can't measure them, and they don't have matter, and they don't have energy, and they don't make gravity, and all these other things that are said about supernatural stuff. So then the question for me is, well, what's the difference?
Let's flip the equation. Let's say we're in a stage we create all these robots, and the AI is so advanced that these robots have a life, and we're watching them from the outside where they can't see us,
What
and
do you
all of a
mean we're
sudden they're
watching them from
existing.
the outside?
Let's say we're watching from any dimension or any angle where they can't see us. They don't know of our existence. We made all these AI robots, and they're right there. They're living. They're performing tasks for us. They're doing all these things, but they don't know that they're performing tasks for us. They don't know that we exist. All they know is the unnatural world of robots. Uh, does that mean that for the robots we don't exist and we cannot exist?
Of course not. We clearly do exist because we created a simulation of robots. But
No, but for them,
at some point of technological advancements, the robots will get to a point where they can causally interact with us and with the realm that we exist in. This four-dimensional space-time, let's say. Because if not, then there's no way that we could interact with them to have created them in the first place.
no,
And that's the
not
thing.
the.
It goes both ways. You know, if the supernatural doesn't interact with the natural, then the natural doesn't interact with the supernatural, and vice versa. And that's another problem. How does the supernatural interact with this fundamentally dissimilar ontology than it? And if there are no methods through which we could actually empirically, meaningfully understand it, then what relevance does it have to our universe, to this ontology at all? Even if it did exist, we could never really know.
Okay. I mean, there's many ways to answer that. I mean, I don't want to.
Oh,
I
sure.
realize that I take more words to say what I want to say than you guys. You guys are a lot more proficient in saying what you want to say. I'll give you a quick example. The Big Bang. We'll go back to T equals 0. Okay.
Oh, wait, really quick. Leo, do you believe that we know if T equals 0 actually did exist?
Yeah, there might not be a T equals 0. We just
Okay.
don't know. But what I can say is that instead of saying let's go back to the Big Bang, people should say let's go back to inflation, because inflation precedes the Big Bang. The Big Bang is just
I'm
a
not sure I'm
period of
following with you
reheating.
here.
So the Big Bang is just a period of reheating that comes after inflation. Because inflation, being an exponential expansion, supercools the universe. And so once inflation stops, then the universe reheats. That is what we mean by the hot Big Bang phase of the universe. The reheating phase that immediately preceded the inflationary epoch.
Okay,
So the earliest thing we
here
know
we're
about
just
is inflation, and we don't know. Inflation could go back eternally. Inflation might have a beginning. We don't know. Nobody knows. No human has even the remotest clue, even the
Big
professionals.
Bell, CCC.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Just be clear, Big Bang Theory, the whole accompanying theory, only goes back, like, once we go back further than one Planck time, I think it is, the math doesn't work. So the singularity, if we go that to like T0 or whatever, it's like a mathematical artifact. We get to infinities and lots of issues with infinities and stuff like that. So
one
there are
thing,
some
OCN,
yeah.
Look at Haikudo's comment.
Oh, what am I missing?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It made me laugh. It made me laugh.
This is not a politics debate.
It's a fun joke, though.
I think we know. Okay, guys, we figured out who God is, and he is just an old white guy, but he doesn't have a beard. Funny.
I actually want to engage. I want to engage that question. I didn't really get to engage it before. The one about like the religion, like if someone was born into a religion. I think that people can find certain values even if they don't subscribe to that religion. And people, for example, a lot of people don't like Islamic tradition. I can see it now because there's a kind of a Wahhabi movement, which is this sort of like Arabo nationalist movement that's, I think, very unhealthy in a lot of ways. But there's...
Look at you.
Yeah, it's a part of that kind of movement, exactly. But there were a lot of people who actually appreciated Islam. If you look in history, we can take, and I brought this up in my debate, take Frank Herbert, who wrote the Dune series. He sees Islam as an evolved religion in a science fiction future. And you see Islam actually in a lot of relationship with Buddhism. Like the Jedi religion is this fusion, and I would say kind of also like early church father Christian type stuff too, but like Buddhism and Islam kind of fused together. You see a lot of that happening. So people may not become Muslim, they may not become these religions, but they do see value in them as cultural milieu. And I think that that's important to grasp as well, I think.
Well, speaking of that, somebody asked, this is on your channel, when is Ozian converting?
That's my home slice.
But
that's my homeboy right there.
Probably not, but I will be quoting the Quran in my debate with Nadir, and I will be appealing to the desire for wisdom that Muhammad, peace be upon him. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, peace be upon him. You got it.
Okay, there you go. Because I wish peace upon anybody. So to me, it doesn't mean when I say that, peace be upon anybody. So I'll say it because I'll be respectful to my interlocutor.
Peace be upon everybody except Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's pretty problematic. I'm with you on that, man.
So some of the concepts like Dr. J brought up, I think, are compelling. Like the trying to like post hoc rationalize to say these claims in the Quran are scientific. And then we find out they're not. It's not like you're going to lose your faith. And if you convince people to only accept the faith because of these scientific miracles, then there's a way out. Once the science is proven, it's like people are going to become disillusioned. They're going to lose their faith. Not saying that's not a bad thing, because I'm an atheist. But I just say it does cause a lot of trauma and people that have deconverted, they can tell you the trauma they suffer through deconversion. So I wish we had coping mechanisms that went beyond people's faith. I wish we taught that stuff, but that's a different argument, I think. But I will be trying to appeal to the Muslim philosophy about whether they should accept the Quran as scientific or not.
What's the debate about? With
is the Quran scientific?
Yeah. Okay. Oh man. I was invited to one of those, and I just was like, no, man, I can't. Like, is the Bible scientific? And then you've got the Vedic cosmology. I've been invited to one of those, and I'm like, I can't do it, man. I will die. I will die, and my head will implode and create a black hole and destroy the world.
I've made arguments about Vedics too. I got videos about it. So somebody's like the second question, I guess he wanted to clarify that it was for this theist. I don't know if he meant Samir or me because I answered the question. I don't know. It's saying that the pragmatic knowledge can supervene on epistemic knowledge or vice versa. And by analytic knowledge, I mean the type of things we know by logical deduction. Mm-hmm. And by what I've called pragmatic knowledge is the thing we accept conditionally using Bayesian reasoning, for instance, or scientific method, I would say.
I think the question is for Leo.
No, I think I don't know. Though. Oh, this was, because I said I wasn't entirely sure what was being understood, how we were understanding pragmatic knowledge there. You sort of a Bayesian. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing? Welcome to the stage. You have any comments?
I only got a portion of the debate. I want to say I listened to about the first hour, and then I was distracted after that. And then I was on another live stream. Nitty was streaming, and I came in after Nitty stream. So I've only been on for about 10 minutes. So I missed a lot. Forgive me if I'm not behind. If I'm behind.
Okay.
One of my biggest observations was the pro-Christian gent was very adamant on making the point about how many people were willing to die in the first century for Christianity. And I'm always fascinated with why Christians think that this is a good point to make. Because quite simply, there are a lot of people who died in the first century. We have evidence that basically one of them died as a person who possibly knew Jesus. One of them died because they had a vision of Jesus. And one of them died because they were the brother of Jesus, and possibly all three were actually political hits instead of actually dying as a martyr for Jesus. And when you contrast how many people died in the first century, I'd say it's a pretty small number, and it's always a constant all through my life. It's always been a constant sticking point, selling point, that Christianity is true because of all these people willing to die, when it was maybe a half a dozen at the most.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I make a quick response to that?
Yeah.
If that's okay with you, Ozian. I think, for me personally, I think it's an interesting thing because researching this, there's this German phrase. It's called Heilsgeschichte, which means a sacred or salvation history. I think it's really, I don't think it's helpful to look at these texts as literal historical documents. I don't think that's
Agreed.
a way of engaging them. And I think this is the problem, is that people want these texts to be literal, scientific, historical documents. And when they do that, it takes away from the text. And I think that that's an issue that you hear. It's like you said, well, these people said it. I'm like, a lot of these figures are archetypal as opposed to being these literal people. We don't really know all of this stuff. And I think it hurts the understanding of the text when you go in and try to say, well, the text literally means this. These people literally did this. And if you actually look at the New Testament documents, the corpus of the New Testament, Paul of Tarsus is actually not, he's not martyred in the text. This is from this is in the church tradition that we see these things. We only really see Stephen I'm just saying from my memory, Stephen is martyred, and it's a John, what's his name? James. I think it's James and Stephen, and that James and Stephen are the only two. Everyone else, and I saw this Bible series, and they're like, oh, Matthew was in India, and I'm like, but that's not in the text. Yeah. That's stuff that is from church tradition, and then that's the thing that people don't even realize. A lot of this stuff is church tradition and not even the text itself. So
maybe not even church tradition as much as it's apologetic. That's
apologetics, sure.
Because it supposedly strengthens the case. I asked a super chat question and he just punted it. I don't think he understood the analogy. So if I asked Luke Edison a super chat question.
Okay. In tonight's debate, I see.
Yeah. So I asked, so let's take World War II. So 4.5 million Germans died because they believed their cause was just. 400,000 Americans died because they believed their cause was just. Does that raise like the value? Like, is one cause more just or not just because more people die for that cause? And no one would ever say that. It's not a good argument. Just because somebody believed something was true, and you would believe that, not all of them, of course, a lot of them are doing it because they have to, but there's a good percentage of them are doing it because they believe in their country and their missions and their leaders and stuff like that. They might not believe.
Never.
Yeah. But it doesn't make it the morality any better. It doesn't mean the cause is just or anything like that. So it's weird to say that Jesus is God because 500 people died believing he was God, or what? How many died in David Koresh? 12 or something?
I thought the point of that argument was just to say that they don't think that people were lying.
Yeah.
But does that really, how many died, especially when kind of the most focused on is Peter.
It's just saying that he claimed he raised from the dead, which isn't very many.
Yeah.
That's all. I think that's all the argument is, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically,
they could be wrong.
The simple fact is
them.
Is it just me, or is Dr. J kind of in and out?
Yeah.
Can I say one really quick thing? It's kind of funny. Well, you guys probably aren't going to find it funny because I'm like maybe the youngest in here at 28. Anyway, every time I hear Paul of Tarsus, my mind goes Paul of tartar sauce.
Is that fish?
No, tartar sauce is used with fish a lot. It's fucking delicious. I don't care what anybody says. But I like fish, so. But yeah, I always hear Paul of tartar sauce, and I don't know why.
I promised the audience this would only go on for 90 minutes unless we had some of the guests show up. None of the guests showed up. We've been going on for an hour 45 minutes. I mean,
It's
guests
been
like
fun
the
though. I
debaters.
will say that.
Yeah. Can I just join Dr. J's position, because I believe what he said is exactly true. The point that he made, T-Jump was asking for a miracle to happen and for testimony to be truthful, and the response was that if these people were willing to die for their testimony, for what they witnessed with their own eyes, with living at the same time as Jesus and seeing these miracles being performed, if they were willing to die for that, that means they were truthful, they were honest. That's the point he was trying to make. And just for you, Ozian, at least your super chat was punted, like you said. Mine, the punter was absent. I submitted a super chat and the punter was not even there to pun it.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, but what he was trying, I disagree with T-Jump with his argument. He's saying just because they believed they experienced those events and they were willing to die for it doesn't mean that it was actually true, that they actually experienced those things, because there would be other reasons for them to have those experiences. It just means that maybe they weren't lying. So let's just take the claim that they believed they experienced the resurrection of Jesus, even though I don't know if you have those two people individually that actually were there at the grave, or did they get secondhand testimony?
Jesus appeared to him later.
Okay, so he appeared to him later. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be evidence that they experienced a thing if they really died based on that. If we just take it textually as true, it doesn't mean that what they experienced is true, which is what T-Jump, I think, was trying to say. Because people will die for false things. People will die for unjust causes.
I completely agree. The fact that they thought it was true doesn't mean it's true. But my understanding is that the only valid value point of the death is saying, well, they probably weren't lying. They could be wrong. It doesn't prove that they're right. People have died for wrong beliefs. So if that's what True Jump was trying to say, he needed to make that really clear,
Yeah, and he's wrong. I think T-Jump wrong. I think it is evidence towards their claim, because if people hold a claim to be true, they experience a thing, and they're willing to die for that experience, that raises the epistemic value of their testimony a little bit. I would never say it's justified for me to believe that what they're claiming happened, but it is evidence towards their claim. And I do believe that Luke was right. I think he wasn't humble enough about it. I think he's over exaggerating the justification for it, but it would be evidence. I tend to agree with Luke on that and disagree with T-Jump on that.
I would just like to suggest that Paul of Tartar Sauce was willing to die for his lie.
Yeah, people are willing to die for lies too, man.
Yeah, I believe he manufactured a lie, and he died for that lie. Even though he was sincere about some of the things that he was presenting, I believe he knew that he was creating a religion in his writing.
Let's take David Koresh, right? He died for his... Did he die because he believed it was true? Or did he die because he knew he was screwed?
I think
he had certainly run his messiahship motif for how long? Whether he believed it true, he had felt the power that he felt was ordained in some form or fashion. Whether it started out as a scam or whether he just kind of became the Messiah that he always dreamed to be. I didn't watch all of it, but I just recently watched the documentary type of, I don't know, whatever I'm trying to say. Docudrama. The docudrama on the creator of Uber. I can't remember the name of that, but the guy who's the PE money guy, he keeps referring to that straddled line between the Messiah and the creators that really changed the world. And
Nikola Tesla.
like Nikola Tesla, yeah, could be.
Okay, but can I push back a little bit? Because you said that Paul died for a lie. But why do you hold, it seems like you're holding David Koresh to a different standard than Paul. Why couldn't Paul have believed what he was doing was true? Like David Koresh may have believed what he was doing was true. Like I'm not in their head.
I'm going to change. Let me change this a little bit because I'm more familiar with Warren Jeffs. And I think Warren Jeffs is a little more of an example where he became an heir apparent and he inherited somebody else's lie. And he himself may have believed it once upon a time. I don't know the backstory of David Koresh for him to come to the same, but there's a moment in which Warren Jeffs manipulates and manufactures basically his messiahship or his prophet. And I think there's a moment in which Paul does the same thing, that he manipulated the mass of Christian followers. If you can't beat them, join them type of thing, and saw an opportunity and took it. And that's why I think he did die for a lie. And I think since Warren Jeffs, throughout the first 15 years in incarceration, still manufactured and is still powering his ministry from jail. But he has since stated, I am not the prophet that I said I once was.
So I can sort of get your argument where Paul he sort of created the church, right? He sort of like made it for the Gentiles and all that stuff and sort of expanded the doctrine because he had met Jesus, whatever. Damascus
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So what if he did? What if he really did have a Damascus moment and it wasn't a lie? Like he believed it was true. It doesn't mean it was true, but he believed it was true. It seems like you can't know for certain, but I can see where your justifications comes from.
I can piece together in the puzzle that I've put together about Paul is I think he figured out how to manufacture a religion, saw an opportunity, built on that opportunity, made a crap ton of money with the Jerusalem donation and realized what he really had. And he wasn't going to cough up the goods. I mean, whether he thought his Jewish God had blessed him with that kind of power and monetary Roman coin, then so be it.
Did he get money from?
What's your understanding of how much of that money he got, and how do you know?
I don't know how much money he got, but he states emphatically that he can't believe how successful he's been as a deceiver. And the Acts 9, there's a vague Acts 9 reference.
You know what part of Acts 9?
So
I
you're
don't
building
remember.
us off on a vague Acts 9 reference? I mean, you seem confident here on this interpretation.
I'm confident that he figured out that he had a lot of power monetarily because of the Jerusalem donation. When he's marching
but you guys
into
know that the argument
that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it could be, but there are people who have a lot of power monetarily.
I didn't hear that.
Found that out too. That can get a lot. There are a lot of people that figured out they can raise a lot of money. Oh shoot! Am I still gone?
No,
the audio's toasted, but
am I still?
Yeah, sorry. You're better.
Am I still here?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just saying that there's a lot of people that can raise a lot of money. It doesn't mean they don't sincerely believe what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably people, other religions, that can raise lots of money that sincerely believe what they're doing. So I don't know why you think you're able to piece it all together. Aren't there pastors today who raise lots of money, get lots of donations, build giant churches, and they sincerely believe in what they're doing?
I would definitely say that seed faith preachers do that, but do you think the possibility that their seed faith is once you figure out something along the lines of Paul's, for instance, I found this guy in Australia. I think he's piecing together a Australian ministry much like Paul's. And I think that the blueprint is there if your eyes have been opened to a certain kind of revelation, I guess you could say. And I have. And that's why I see it. That's why I see, instead of Romans 1 opening my heart, I actually see Romans 1 through 4 as a mimic of starting religion, just like Genesis 1 through 11 is.
But yeah,
I'd love
but you
to see
seem to
that
be able to
debate.
reach into Paul's soul, reach into Paul's soul here. I don't know if you can do that.
I think there's writings, especially in 2 Corinthians. I think in Acts. I think in some of the accusations that he's having to answer to, that he's mentioning that he's done some things for money, and he's being called out on essentially a lie. I don't remember exactly the exact verse, but the moment that he is answering that, he's like, hey, I didn't, I did it over here, but I'm not doing it to the very church that I started. I'm only doing it over here.
Doing it.
And Christy Burke has an excellent video on Paul having to answer for his deception.
Do you have a link? I'd love to see that. Like, that's an interesting
yeah.
argument. But I do want to close out, even though this is a wonderful discussion.
And I'll post a link. I can also post a link. This is from the gospelcoalition.org about the reason for the Jerusalem donation and the success of the Jerusalem donation. And to me, that solves the problem on what the money motivation was. And I kind of use an example of Warren Jeffs again on how we know that he was able to take down more than $300,000 a week with his roughly 7,500 households under his control. And I think...
Yeah, but this makes it sound like because you found out there was a religious person that raised money, that they must be doing it, and they don't believe in the reason they're raising money. Are you not open to the possibility that there's religious people that raise money, and maybe raise a lot of it, that sincerely believe what they're doing?
Yeah, I believe that there are people who are in both categories. I'm gonna, and there could be more than two, but that there are people who genuinely believe that the seed faith preachers, is a good example. Do I think Kenneth Copeland, for instance, I think he's kind of the cream at the top here. Do I think Kenneth Copeland got in to his ministry from the story of him flying Oral Roberts, I think it is, and seeing how much money he has? He was money motivated to become the preacher he is today. I also think that there's some that may not genuinely be money hungry, but the result of their fruits, so to speak, their seed faith and the first fruits is, and I'll put Andrew Womack into that category. I think he genuinely believes that there's a God and that there's a Jesus, but he also knows how the game profits him. And I think you could have both types in that situation and be either humbled by it.
Is there possible that there's a... Are you open to the possibility that it's a person that believes it true, is very sincere, raises tons and tons of money, and the fact that they've raised tons and tons of money doesn't change their character or how you would view their character at all?
Wait, say that again. Say
Say
again,
that
Dr. K.
there's a religious person who raises a lot of money. Are you open to the concept that there's a religious person who's raised a lot of money, and yet they were a good person before, and the fact that they've raised a lot of money doesn't change their character at all? Is that a possibility? Is that a
Absolutely.
category you believe
I
could be?
think I was using Andrew Womack as that example.
When you said he knows the game, that, or it
But
sounded
he may
like
know
that, I
the
was just
game.
clarifying.
Yeah. But I don't
The
know
game
what Andrew
doesn't
Womack
sound
was
great.
at 20, but I know what he is over the last, say, 5 years. And to me, his ministry sells a tale, without a doubt. You watch his healing ministries, and he is shilling, in my opinion, his ministry is shilling miracle healing as
So
a part of his money-making ministry.
And there are lots of preachers that have raised lots of money that don't do any healing at all, and they've raised tons of money. Are those people's possibly just,
How does this relate to
doing what
Paul? And how
I'm
does this
saying
relate
then
to
you
Paul?
have to be able to, you would have to prove that just because that the fact that he made money, the fact that he made money doesn't really prove anything, right? And so maybe you've kind of mentioned some other evidence that you think would demonstrate that he was money motivated, and because you've made the claim he didn't believe what he was saying, right? He thought it was a lie, he knew it was a lie, and he was just essentially doing it for money. So the fact that he got money to me isn't provide much evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you have others.
Yeah, I would watch that Christy Burke commentary.
Let's see if I can find it. How do you spell Christy? Is it CHR or?
I don't know. Let me find my
Paul?
subs.
Christy Burke on Paul?
Yes.
7 times Paul contradicted Jesus. The dishonest apostle was Paul caught in a lie. So it's Christy, Kristi.
I think is Paul caught in a lie.
Was Paul caught in a lie? The dishonest. I'll post the link in the live chat.
I think
it's 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's if
what's her background? Is she?
I think she was a fundie and then left the faith around 3 or 4 years ago. She had another channel called Jezebel something.
Oh, I might remember that.
And then she went over to this. I know she's on a break right now. She announced that she was taking some personal time away from YouTube's. Here we go. Christy Burke. And let me see which one.
Do you know who my favorite is? Is Peter Popov, when Randy, the great Randy, revealed him, where he was like, "You have arthritis. You've got arthritis. And, why don't you come up here and I'll heal you?" It was the most crazy thing. There are a lot of shills there. There are a lot of shills in that so-called prosperity gospel where they will do all these. They do like mentalism and like parlor tricks, and it's sickening because it really attacks people who really do have faith in religion and stuff. It makes people be like, "Oh my gosh, I just don't want to trust any of it."
Yeah, I'm going to.
I posted the link to that one video. The dishonest apostle was Paul caught in a lie, and it's Kristi Burke, Burke.
And it still requires fact checking on it, but when she presents the verses, and you know that many of the letters are responding to other letters that we don't have. It's not that Paul is writing the word of God. He's writing his letters to the church, and the church has written letters to him, and he's having to respond or defend some of the things that he's either written in the past, or in this case, they're writing questioning whether or not he's a legitimate person who knows that Jesus did and said the things that Jesus did and said. Because I think he's getting an accusation in some of what Christy is reviewing. I think he's getting an accusation of he you might be scum, and we don't really want to be associated with that. At least that's what I read into it.
Yeah, to me, I always like any type of claims like this, like people's testimony, I always put in the most positive light, or I try to, because I understand like how written words can be conveyed. So if I read it, if I don't see any direct tie between the two claims, I would not come to the conclusion that he's lying about the belief, because I think there's so many other letters and stuff he wrote that say he does believe. So I don't know if you could just take two little snippets that could be construed to believe he doesn't believe, to justify that he's lying about his belief in Jesus.
Let me give you my skeptical reservation here. Against Peter and against Paul. If I was presented with the resume for Peter for hiring him for a church, there is no way I would hire the guy. I mean, the very principle of being the most celebrated liar on earth, surrounding a god, to me is enough to say something is scammy going on with Peter.
Well, you're presupposing he's lying about everything.
He definitely lies to authorities about God, if God is real and he is associated with God.
I'd have to see
talking
those
about him
claims
denying.
He denies, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, so isn't the kind of the point of the Bible like David was the man after God's own heart, even though he murdered somebody, and so a part of the big motif of the Bible is sort of the redemption aspect of it. So, are you saying that the fact that Paul was not a good person at points is a demonstration he's not a good guy to lead the religion going forward?
In my personal experience, if I'm standing next to my dad and I don't have anything to worry about, and I tell the truth, standing next to my dad, what is the worry I have of lying? What is the worry? Why would I worry? If I'm standing next to Jesus, either at his arrest, at his being beaten from head to toe, and at his crucifixion for asphyxiation, what do I have to worry about standing next to my God? There's no excuse for it.
So it seems like he didn't have faith that God was really going to pull through, right? And so he had time in which he didn't have faith, which happens all the time in the Bible, right? Like the whole overall narrative of the Bible is like, you've been bad and you have this chance to be good again. Like, right? You have a chance you can turn it around. And Peter is an example of a bad guy. And look, even he turned it around. You can turn it around too. So isn't he a good choice or a fine or whatever? I don't know how good, but like it fits the whole narrative of the Bible.
If you want to be in the company of people who celebrate a liar as the primary origin of their religion, and you have also a book that warns you about false teachers, false prophets, don't be deceived, ravenous wolves, you be my guest if you follow that religion and not do your diligence.
I can understand why you're not religious. I'm not super sure these particular arguments are necessarily convincing. The whole Bible is people that were bad, right? Like that's the whole thing. Who are the good people in the Bible? There are none. They're like
I'm gonna go with the doubters. They're the good ones.
You know,
like I just don't see any reason to follow a book that isn't written by God when God was here. Assuming you're a Christian by this line of questioning. So if you want to tell me that I should follow somebody who is lying about their God, there is nobody else in the world that you could possibly want to lie about less than God. And you lie about God. I just don't. I don't find that convincing.
If that story were different and Peter were a perfectly good guy, it wouldn't matter to you either. So,
is that fair assessment? I mean, really, is there anything upright-ish?
You would find.
I'm sorry, I'm not a Christian, but I'll defend Dr. J at this point. My contention here is the argument you're making now, 2,000 years later.
I can't hear you.
You're breaking
up.
Can you
hear me?
No, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I said I'm not Christian, but I'll defend Dr. J's position here on this point because the argument that you're making now, 2,000 years later, that as a proof why you wouldn't be convinced 2,000 years later, you don't believe that any of the people that were present at the time that strongly believed to the point where this religion spread across the world, that none of them has the wisdom to raise these points as reasons not to believe.
Okay. So how many were convinced in, say, somewhere between 25 and 35? How many? How many people are we talking here?
Not many.
Not many. Like we're talking like less than 5 authors of a book, none of them being Jesus, none of them being Peter, and only Paul is the one who really signs his name to it. Right? We don't have Jesus' own word, and we have warnings upon warnings of deception, and we have an adversary who is making Jesus an offer he can't refuse right there at the beginning of his ministry. And do we have any evidence of any of this? Do we have any first-hand accounts, really, of any of it? No, we don't. And the person who is considered a rock is not only the most celebrated liar, he is indeed called in the book the Satan. And I don't think he's being referred to as an evil deity. I think he's being referred to as the adversary. Enjoy your religion. Enjoy every single portion of your religion you want.
Yeah, I
celebrate
I
it.
don't understand. The having people that are bad be major parts of the religion. Paul claims he's the chief of sinners. There are no good guys in the Bible, and so by pointing out that Paul was a bad guy, I'm not sure is a good argument for me. I mean, your other arguments you brought up, I think, are better, but the Peter one, I'm not sure is good.
Well, clearly, if people are willing to die for a lie, they might be lying in the first place. They might be. And we have evidence. We have evidence for the liars being liars and the deceivers being deceivers, and we're warned against following these people in this holy book.
Often when
in the same book,
and often when liars get caught in a lie, what do they usually do when it would benefit them? I
didn't hear if you finished that sentence. I will say this: Warren Jeffs did not fess up right away. It took him 15 years of prison before he fessed up and said, "I'm not a prophet." He didn't squeal then. He ran his empire, and he still runs his empire. He's just admitted he's not a prophet.
And it is possible that is what Paul did too. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just you'd have to provide good evidence that is the case.
Well, another reason I came on, is it okay to change the subject, or did you want to close it down?
That's fine. Go ahead.
Another
the audience wants it, so.
Wants which? What's which?
No, the audience wants to listen to this conversation.
Oh, do they? Oh, okay. I'll continue.
No,
I'll
if you want to
continue.
change it topics, what did you want to change it to?
Well, in the pre-show, Max wanted me to give him a link.
Yes, I did.
Max wanted me to give him a link in which I don't think God necessarily is lying, but I do believe I found 9 things in the Genesis creation story and the Eve partaking of the fruit story in which God fails to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help himself. So,
Which goes
This-
against these tag arguments to me. Like, how can you have knowledge if God can be deceitful? And how can you justify knowing that God can never be deceitful? It just
and it's not that necessarily that it's a definite lie. Maybe 1 or 2 of them are a definite subject to interpretation lie, flat out lie.
Well, look who we got now.
Mark.
Hey, how you doing?
Yes.
We
I
have-
see Max.
We have 4 people
And now
with beautiful
Mark.
hair. and
It
then-
is
Attack of the Bolts.
it is the shaver's paradise tonight.
I don't see myself as bald. I see myself as scalp endowed. Thank you.
That's right. Scalp endowed. Phallically challenged.
Hey, so I just got this. So I saw a tiny bit of this debate, and yeah, it was kind of I think T-Jump doesn't listen to the moderator. It's one of those things. I got to call it out. I got to say it like it is. He doesn't. He tells the moderator what to do, and I think it's a bad look all around. That's just my opinion. But apart from that, I think Luke was, in what I saw, Luke was kind of not getting the idea of. He was trying to say, hey, it requires intelligence to, make free will kind of thing. And he agreed with Alex O'Connor's, who I believe he had a debate with Ben Shapiro, and said that, hey, if there is actual free will, it may be an argument from God. I kind of disagree, because T-Jump sort of said, hey, well, you could have the free will coming from the chakras and spiritual of the Hindu religion kind of thing. And I kind of agree. I kind of think that if you're sort of saying, hey, free will has to be created by an intelligence, you've got to support that statement. I don't know if he did in the future. I had a show to do, so I had to go, but
he didn't.
Yeah, so he's basically saying, well, if you can claim that free will is created by a god, you could also claim that it's created by magic or chakras or spiritual energy or some other thing, and it still doesn't get you to a god, where Luke sort of said, well, what you're describing as a god. And I was really confused. Did he kind of give a definition for God that wasn't any kind of agent? Is my question.
It's a God was.
No, he
I wrote
said-
it down.
He said it was a creator. He said whatever you believe gave that free will is the creator, which is the topic.
Well, I mean, a creator, humans are creators, sure, but there's other things that are, it depends how you're using creation in that stance. Like, is a snowflake created? Because we would say, hey, a snowflake is created by the weather patterns, the temperature, the physics that allow ice to form in a particular pattern that creates this pattern that the snowflake has. But I wouldn't refer to that as a creator in the sense that he is. So I would refer to a creator as in, an agent that is actually using a will to form something from something else or from nothing, actually putting it together. Whereas I would more say, if talking technically, that a snowflake is formed by natural processes rather than created. So he's begging the question that humans are a creation, right? So he's begging that question to start off with, and sort of saying, hey, humans were created. rather than a product of natural phenomena.
Well, he was saying nothing could exist without intention for it to exist. He was making some type of theological argument. And
No.
So I think you have to so that's a problem, because then you're saying that everything is created. You're begging that question. You're saying, hey, everything is a creation, so it needs a creator. Well, you haven't justified that everything is a creation to begin with.
yeah.
I'm sorry, but the example you gave about a snowflake is totally different, because now we're talking about life, we're talking about intelligence, we're talking about a soul, we're talking about free will, and
Well,
the example of the snowflake doesn't reflect any of that.
Okay. Well, okay. So let's just. So you want to pin it down to life and. Okay. So you're saying that life is created. Is that right?
We're talking, yes, exactly. Life, intelligence, free will, consciousness, a soul.
Okay. So can you demonstrate that that was created by an agent, something with a will to do so?
Okay. Here's the deal. The deal is I gotta follow the logic.
It's a simple question.
Yeah, it is. Yes, I can.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. The starting point should be something that goes parallel with the logic. For example, if when Christopher Columbus landed in America and he says that I discovered a new land, let's say he hasn't seen the Native Americans yet, and he found a wooden cabin in the middle of the woods. The natural conclusion would not that he found a wild house. The natural conclusion is that there is someone here. So the same thing, the natural conclusion when you see intelligence, when you see a program, when you see DNA, when you see consciousness, when you see all these things, is that that intelligence has to be written. If you find a book is a lot simpler than a DNA sequence. If you land on an island and find a book that is written with a language that you don't even understand, and you can see alphabet and there are letters and everything, you would say that this book was created by someone. There is not a single chance in the world that you would say that this is a wild book. So
okay, so yeah, let me address that, because that's the watchmaker argument. That's the theological argument, and that's the watchmaker was used, centuries ago, and there's a reason why they don't use it still. The problem with that is that a book isn't an intelligent thing, and it doesn't reproduce. There's categories here that we're saying, hey, organic life is different than things that humans create. And we know that that is human created because we have experience with humans creating that. So a book isn't DNA. DNA acts completely differently. It changes over time. It reproduces itself. A book doesn't do that. So those things are in different categories. Furthermore, when you're sort of saying, hey, I found a book, and I know that is created because it is, complex or something like that, and that's essentially the watchmaker argument. The problem with that argument, it's not just the cabin or the book that you find that has been created, it's also the rocks around it that have been created as well as the water you travel over has been created, as well as everything in the universe that has been created. So you're basically picking this one created thing, humans, out of a whole load of created things, rocks, water, everything, and saying, well, that must be created because that's special. But the problem is you've got no comparison. Everything's been created, and you're separating humans from rocks. Why? They're both created things according to you. So that's where the watchmaker analogy falls down, because there is something about humans that you're differentiating between everything else and saying, hey, that shows that things have been created. But you're not saying that about the rock. That's been created as well. And you're not saying that about the clouds. They've been created as well. So you're picking out these things that you think special. You have to demonstrate that those things have in fact been created in order to show that. You can't just assert and beg the question that they are creations.
Okay, with that, really quick, Samir, Mark Reed, we're going to move this conversation over to Jimmy's channel, Tux TV.
Okay.
And because this has been going on for 2.5, it's gone on an hour past. I promised the audience it would.
I think it's me showing up.
No,
Oz has
no,
just got it in for me. Yeah, no, I choose to believe that. I'm sorry.
Jimmy Tux went into Paul was a liar. The whole church is a lie. And he's tried to make an argument for it. I wasn't convinced of his argument, but that's okay. I'm an atheist, by the way, so everybody knows. People calling me a theist, a future Muslim, so far on this stream. But anyways, we're going to close it out. And do you got a link for the stream, or I'll just post your?
Yeah, let me create one here and
link something.
Gonna take me a second.
Yeah, I might show up. I'm sort of awake.
While we do that, small change in my regular Wednesday show. There's a bunch of stuff going on Wednesday, so we're going to move the show to Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be waiting for you.
Yeah, and we're going to have a pre-show and after-show for the debate tomorrow for Leo versus Ross. That should be a dumpster fire. Mark has a lot of experience with Ross.
Yeah, no, I don't think Leo's got a very different style than I do, so I think that's going to be absolute madness.
Oh boy.
Yes.
And then on the 31st, we have Is the Quran Scientific? This is not my debate. This is Ben versus Mohammed. That'll be on the 31st. We'll do a pre-show and after show. And then after that, I think on the 2nd, it's Michael Jones versus, can't remember who, on the Resurrection. So I haven't scheduled that one yet. But you guys can check the live schedule. Did you get that stream set up yet there?
I'm about to hit start on it right now.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me start it for later and say.
Well, let me set up a redirect too. Post the link and I'll.
Let's do it 11:20.
Right, sure.
Should I do it sooner? 11:15.
All good with me. I'll grab a coffee and come in.
Yeah.
So just post the link and I'll set up a redirect. That way, when hopefully you have redirect set up. If not, oh well.
I think I know Ember's done it once.
Okay.
And then that should do.
Anyways, while we do that, if you guys want to I asked you at the beginning, I said I would ask you at the end if you liked what you saw, please like the show. Please subscribe to the channel.
Yeah.
It's 99 cents for a channel membership. That helps me because I put a lot of money into this. I'm just saying.
You get cool emojis as well, including one of was Obsidian looking very dapper, I must say. Very dapper.
Yes. And the derailed emoji, I like that one. Definitely that one. We get derailed. I think derailed quite a bit here. So I'll post
I've got a tangent emoji. I love that one. It's just
Well, I tried to do the meteor idea for all the emojis, but Earl already posted it. That's good. I posted the link to the after show there.
Thanks, sir.
Let me do the redirect. Yep, the save. So as soon as this is over, it should redirect you right to Jimmy's show. So you guys can go check it out, continue this discussion there. With that, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We had a wonderful conversation. I think the live chat here says, once again, this show was better than the debate.
Oh, my.
Every time.
What is the name of the channel in case we get lost?
At Jimmy Tux TV.
Okay,
thank you. The YouTube @ symbol.
I'm pretty sure if you search YouTube for just Tux TV, it should come up right. There's no other Tux running around out there,
There's some Tux TVs out there, believe it or not. Oddly enough,
yours is what comes up for me. Definitely, maybe.
But we're subbed to each other, and we intermingle like crazy. Yeah. So YouTube algorithm says.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna go grab coffee, but I'll see you later, Tux, and anybody that chooses to join.
Yeah. Cheers. Bowtie bless all.
See ya. All right, everybody. Bye bye. Till next time. Tomorrow.
Bye bye.